For a trucker, the road has a rhythm, a predictable flow of familiar logos and faces you see for a few days and then never again. But after the third time I saw that rusty Ford Ranger with the cracked taillight first in Arizona, then New Mexico, and now pulling into the same desolate rest stop in West Texas, the rhythm started to sound like a drumbeat of warning. My rig, a cherry red Freightliner I'd nicknamed Big Red, was my kingdom. For 5 years, she'd been my office, my diner, and my bedroom, a 40-ton fortress of solitude against the endless asphalt ribbon of America. I knew her groans and sighs better than I knew my own mother's voice. In the cab, I was in control. Out here, on the fringes of civilization where the cell signal dies and the sky swallows you whole, that control is everything. The first time I saw the Ranger, it was just another vehicle in the chaotic dance of a Flagstaff truck stop. I was fueling up, the smell of diesel hanging heavy in the dry Arizona air. It was a beater, a late 90s model, the kind of truck that's more rust than paint, with a dented fender and a spiderweb crack in the passenger side window. The driver, a man who looked like he'd been carved out of jerky, was just sitting in his cab, staring out at the churn of rigs. I didn't think anything of it. You see 1,000 cars a day out here. The second time was 2 days later, at a dusty pull-off east of Albuquerque. I'd stopped to check my tires and stretch my legs. As I circled Big Red, kicking the rubber, I saw it parked at the far end of the lot. Same rusty Ford. This time, the man was out of the truck, leaning against the grill, smoking a cigarette. He was gaunt, with hollow cheeks and eyes that seemed to suck in the light. He looked over at me, and our eyes met for a fraction of a second. There was no emotion in his gaze, not anger, not curiosity, just a flat, unnerving stillness. The moment passed, and I climbed back into my cab, my skin prickling. Coincidence, I told myself. It's a big country, but I-40 is a major artery. People travel the same routes. But now, here in West Texas, the word coincidence felt flimsy, a paper-thin shield against a growing dread. I'd pulled in for my mandatory break, the sun bleeding across the horizon in shades of orange and purple. The rest stop was one of those lonely ones, just a handful of parking spots and a concrete bathroom block that smelled of bleach and despair. I was logging my hours when his headlights swept across my cab. He pulled into a spot a few rows down, positioning his truck so it faced mine. He killed the engine, but the darkness inside his cab remained absolute. I couldn't see if he was still in there. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a coincidence. Not anymore. Flagstaff to West Texas is over 600 miles. There's no reason for a beat-up pickup to be shadowing a long-haul semi. I grabbed my maglite, its heavy, ribbed metal a comforting weight in my hand. My dad, a trucker himself for 30 years, had given it to me. Never know when you'll need to see in the dark or knock some sense into someone, he'd said. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was a fellow road warrior, a hotshot driver running a similar route. But hotshots usually have newer, more reliable trucks, not something that looked like it would fall apart if you sneezed too hard. I locked my doors, a click that sounded deafening in the sudden silence of my cab. I pulled the curtains shut, plunging myself into a cocoon of familiar darkness, but sleep was a million miles away. Every creak of my truck, every gust of wind whistling past my mirrors, sounded like footsteps. The next morning, I was up before the sun, eager to put miles between me and that Ranger. I did my pre-trip inspection with my head on a swivel. The pickup was still there, silent and dark. As I swung around to the passenger side of my cab, I saw it. Tucked under my windshield wiper was a single, grimy feather. It was a crow's feather, black and iridescent. My stomach lurched. It wasn't just a feather, it was a message. A marker. He had been close to my truck while I slept. He had stood right here, where I was standing now. I snatched it with a napkin, my fingers trembling, and threw it in the trash. I didn't look back at the ranger as I pulled out of the rest stop, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The road ahead was flat and empty, a straight shot through a landscape that God seemed to have forgotten. For the next 2 days, the game continued. I'd see him in my rearview mirror, a distant speck that would slowly gain on me until he was a few truck lengths behind. He never tailgated, never tried to pass. He just stayed there, a constant, menacing presence. Then he'd be gone. I'd pull into a stop for fuel, my nerves shot, and as I was leaving, he'd be pulling in. We never stopped at the same time. It was a carefully orchestrated dance, and he was leading. The gifts got worse. In Oklahoma, it was a small, crudely made doll of corn husks left on the steps of my cab. In Arkansas, a faded photograph of a family I didn't know, tucked into the handle of my trailer door. Each one was a violation, a reminder of my vulnerability. My cab, my fortress, felt less and less safe. I started sleeping with the maglite on my chest. I called other truckers on the CB, old friends and familiar handles, just to hear a friendly voice, to feel less alone in the vast emptiness. But I couldn't bring myself to tell them what was happening. What would I say? That a guy in a rusty truck was leaving me weird trinkets. They'd tell me I was road crazy, that the loneliness was getting to me. I thought about calling the cops, but the same problem arose. What's the crime? A man is driving on the same highway as me. He left a feather on my truck. It sounded pathetic, the ramblings of a paranoid woman. I knew how it would be perceived. I was a female trucker, a minority in this world of men. I had to be tough, unshakable. Showing fear was a weakness I couldn't afford. The turning point came in Tennessee, on a stretch of I-81 snaking through the Appalachians. It was late, close to 2 a.m., and a thick, soupy fog had descended on the mountains, reducing visibility to a few feet. The world outside my headlights was a swirling abyss of gray. I was crawling along, my eyes straining, when I saw the flicker of hazard lights ahead. It was a pickup truck, pulled over on the narrow shoulder. My blood ran cold. It was him. My training, my instincts, everything screamed at me not to stop. But what if he was genuinely in trouble? What if his truck had finally given up the ghost? To leave someone stranded on a night like this, in a place this remote, it wasn't in me. But the fear was stronger. I kept my foot on the accelerator, my lane clear. As I passed, I glanced over. He was standing beside his truck, his face illuminated for a terrifying instant in my headlights. He wasn't looking at his engine, he was looking right at me. And he was smiling. A wide, lipless grin that was pure malice. My heart seized in my chest. It was a trap. The moment I was past him, his headlights flashed on, bright and piercing in my rearview mirror. He pulled out behind me, his engine roaring to life. The chase was on. He was fast, his small truck nimble compared to my lumbering giant. He tailgated me, his high beams burning into my mirrors, blinding me. The fog was my enemy, clinging to the road, hiding the curves. He was trying to force me into a mistake, to run me off the road into the dark, unforgiving trees. Get away from me! I screamed into the empty cab, my voice hoarse with terror. My mind raced, sifting through years of experience, through every piece of advice my dad had ever given me. A truck is a weapon, Sarah. Don't ever forget that. He pulled into the left lane, trying to get alongside me. I swerved, using the sheer size of my trailer to block him, to keep him behind me. The trailer swayed, the tires screeching in protest. The Ford darted back behind me. It was a deadly ballet on a mountain pass. My breath came in ragged gasps. I was sweating, my palms slick on the steering wheel. I needed a plan. I couldn't outrun him, not on these roads. I couldn't just keep driving until my fuel ran out. I had to end this. Ahead, I saw a sign, its green reflective letters ghostly in the fog, runaway truck ramp, 1 mile. An idea, desperate and dangerous, sparked in my mind. It was a gamble, but it was the only one I had. I eased off the accelerator, just a little, letting him think I was losing steam, that the long incline was getting to me. He took the bait, his engine whining as he pulled out again to overtake me. This was it. As his truck's nose came level with my cab, I cranked the wheel to the left, a sharp, brutal movement. The massive steel bumper of Big Red slammed into the side of his pickup. The sound was a sickening crunch of metal, a scream of tortured steel. His truck spun out, careening across the lane. I straightened out, my own rig groaning under the strain. I looked in my mirror. He was fighting for control, his truck fishtailing wildly on the slick pavement. But he was a good driver. Too good. He managed to get the Ranger pointed forward again, its side crumpled and scarred. He wasn't stopping. He was coming for me again, his rage a tangible thing I could feel even from a distance. The runaway ramp was just ahead, a steep, gravel-filled incline designed to stop a speeding truck that had lost its brakes. I knew it would tear the hell out of my rig, but it was better than the alternative. I floored it, pushing Big Red as hard as she could go. The ramp was coming up fast on the right. He saw what I was doing, and his engine screamed as he tried to cut me off, to get between me and my only escape. He was fast, but I had momentum. At the last possible second, I veered sharply to the right, the tires howling. Big Red crashed onto the ramp, the deep, loose gravel grabbing at the wheels like a physical force. The deceleration was brutal. I was thrown forward against my seatbelt, the cab filled with a roar of grinding gravel and protesting metal. The truck churned its way up the incline, slowing rapidly, until finally, with a shuddering groan, it came to a stop. Silence. The engine ticked, the only sound in the sudden, deafening quiet. I sat there, shaking, my chest heaving. Through the fog-streaked windshield, I saw his headlights. He hadn't followed me onto the ramp. He had skidded to a stop on the shoulder of the highway, just past the entrance. His truck was a dark silhouette against the swirling gray, its one good headlight pinning me in its beam. We sat there for what felt like an eternity, two combatants in a silent standoff. My hand fumbled for the CB radio. My voice was a shaky whisper when I finally broadcast. Mayday, Mayday. This is Big Red. I've been run off the road on I-81, northbound, just past mile marker 73. I need assistance. There's a vehicle, he's still here. The response was a crackle of static, then a calm voice. A highway patrolman. He was only a few miles out. The moment the dispatcher's voice came over the radio, the Ranger's headlight went out. The engine revved once, a defiant snarl, and then the truck performed a tight U-turn, its tires squealing on the wet asphalt. It sped off, its single, cracked taillight disappearing into the oppressive fog. He was gone. The police came, and I told them everything. The multiple sightings, the creepy gifts, the chase. They listened patiently, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. A crumpled pickup and a terrified woman in a truck stuck in a gravel pit. Without his truck, without him, it was just my word against the empty night. They took my statement, ran a search for a rusty Ford Ranger with a busted taillight, a description that fits half the old trucks in the Appalachians, and promised to keep an eye out. A tow truck eventually pulled Big Red from the ramp, her undercarriage scraped and battered, but alive. I never saw him again. For months, every rusty pickup I saw in my mirrors sent a jolt of panic through me. Every stop was filled with anxiety. The road, once my sanctuary, felt tainted. My fortress had been breached, and the feeling of safety I once had in my cab was gone, replaced by a lingering unease that has never truly left me. I don't know who he was or what he wanted. Was I just a random target? Or was it something more personal? Did he know my route because he was a trucker too, someone I'd cut off or slighted without realizing it? Or was he something worse, a predator who hunted the lonely highways, looking for prey? The not knowing is a special kind of hell. Sometimes, late at night, when the road is dark and I'm the only one for miles, I think about that smile, that empty, soulless grin in the fog. And I know that monsters are real. They don't have fangs or claws. They drive rusty pickup trucks and they wait patiently at desolate rest stops for the rhythm of the road to bring you to them. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. We appreciate everyone and can't wait to bring more stories your way.